Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to really dig deep into ideas that hopefully make you think. And today we're tackling something pretty huge. Like, what if this reality we see every day, what if it's not the full picture?
Right. What if there's something, deeper, a kind of unified reality, maybe an inner freedom, just waiting, waiting inside us?
Exactly, that feeling. And it's a question people have asked forever, haven't they? Mystics, philosophers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Across all sorts of cultures and times. And that's what's exciting about today. We're pulling together insights from so many different places. We've got ancient Eastern stuff like the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, then jumping over to Western mystics. Think Course in Miracles, St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul, the Cloud of Unknowing, even someone like Meister Eckhart, the 14th century German mystic.
Oh, yeah, Eckhart. His ideas were pretty radical, weren't they? Almost got him into trouble.
Definitely. Talking about a God beyond God, the divine being born in the soul.
Yeah.
Really pushing boundaries. And we'll weave that in alongside more modern exploration, too. They all seem to point towards this really different way of seeing ourselves and, well, everything.
So our mission here for you listening is really to boil these big ideas down into something, usable, like powerful little nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah, like a shortcut to getting your head around these timeless principles. Not just what they are, but why they matter, how they might actually apply.
Exactly. We're exploring how all these different voices, even using different words, guide us towards that God beyond God idea, that bigger unity, and how understanding that might just change everything, how we see love, why we suffer, what freedom really means.
It could definitely lead to some aha moments, hopefully.
Hopefully. Ready to unpack it all.
Let's do it. Okay, so where do we even begin? I think the most fundamental place is how we actually perceive reality in the first place.
Right, because it feels so solid, so objective, doesn't it? Like the world is just out there.
Exactly. But what if it's not quite like that? A lot of these spiritual traditions suggest that our reality isn't fixed. It's fundamentally shaped by what we allow into our minds, what we accept.
So it's less about objective reality and more about our relationship with reality.
Precisely. It's almost like a constant conversation between inside and outside. What you accept internally starts to define what you experience externally.
That really flips the script, doesn't it? Suddenly, we're not just passive observers, we're active creators of our experience. A Course in Miracles hits this hard. It says, perception derives meaning from relationships. Those you accept are the foundations of your beliefs.
And then it follows with, whatever you accept into your mind has reality for you. It is your acceptance of it that makes it real.
Wow. So our beliefs aren't just thoughts floating around. They're like the blueprints, the code for the reality we experience.
That's a great way to put it. Your acceptance makes it real for you. Which leads to this next really crucial point. That the world you see outside yourself is basically a mirror. It reflects your internal state. The Course also says, what you perceive in others, you are strengthening in yourself.
Okay, hold on. So if I see, like, division or conflict everywhere, I'm not just observing it, I'm actually reinforcing it within me.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Because you've already accepted division as real inside your own mind. So you project it out, see it reflected back, and that confirms your original belief. It's a cycle.
That's slightly terrifying, but also empowering, because it means change starts inside.
Exactly. And this brings us right to the doorstep of the ego.
Ah, the ego. The usual suspect in these discussions.
Pretty much. So many traditions identify this. This part of our psyche that seems absolutely dedicated to the idea of separation. It thrives on difference, on me versus you.
A Course in Miracles contrasts it directly with peace, right? It says, the ego is the symbol of separation, just as the Holy Spirit is the symbol of peace. A stark choice.
Very stark. And the ego's whole game is based on a misunderstanding, or maybe a misinterpretation, of our true nature. It doesn't see things like mistakes or sin as just a lack of love or being disconnected from our unified state.
No, it sees it as...
It sees it as a positive act of assault.
Yeah.
That's the Course's wording. For the ego to survive, it needs to perceive attacks, offenses, reasons for conflict. It needs evidence that separation is real and dangerous.
Because without separation, the ego basically dissolves. It has no function.
Precisely. Its entire identity is built on being separate. So it constantly scans the horizon for threats, for differences, for reasons to judge and condemn.
And you see this play out all the time, right? Those moments of intense guilt or anger or blaming others.
The Course says, guilt is a sure sign that your thinking is unnatural. Unnatural because it's not aligned with our true, unified, loving nature. It's the ego's voice.
And its judgment is predetermined by what it is. Meaning, It can only judge based on separation because that's all it knows.
Exactly. It's programmed for division. And that unnatural thinking just spirals out, creating suffering, misunderstanding, conflict. You name it. It traps us.
Okay, so that's the ego, the architect of separation. But then there's this even bigger, maybe more mind-bending idea, the whole concept of individual selfhood being, well, maybe not the full story.
Right. This is where things get really expansive. Many traditions, and you hear echoes of this strongly in mystics like Meister Eckhart, suggest that beyond our physical bodies, beyond our individual egos, there's something else. A singular, eternal self, soul, consciousness.
Something that doesn't die like the body does.
Exactly. Something that just transitions. Not extinguished, it just changes its form or focus. Conversations with God puts it really bluntly. You don't ever die. You cannot. For you are life itself. And life cannot not be life, therefore you cannot die.
That's quite a statement. It challenges our deepest fears about annihilation.
It really does. And it goes on to describe the experience after physical death in these incredible terms, like the self literally flying all over the room, then of being everywhere in the space all at once.
Everywhere at once.
Yeah, learning it can go anywhere instantly, just with the speed of its thought. Even being in multiple places simultaneously.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of consciousness totally unbound by physical laws as we know them.
Which makes our current experience seem incredibly limited.
In a way, yes, limited by the constraints of the physical body and brain. But what's really provocative also from conversations with God is this idea about language in what it calls highly evolved cultures.
What about their language?
It claims they don't have personal possessives, like mine and yours just don't exist as concepts in the same way.
Seriously, so instead of my car.
It would be something like the car I am now with.
Wow, that fundamentally changes everything. Ownership, identity.
It completely dismantles it.
Yeah.
It challenges our whole societal structure, which is built on mine and yours, on possession, on separation.
And this ties directly back to the idea of a single underlying reality, doesn't it? If there are no real possessions, maybe there are no real separate owners either.
That's exactly where it leads. Conversations with God suggest there is only one soul, reshaping and reforming itself. You are all God's information. We're all expressions, individuations of this one single energy.
Like waves on the ocean. Each wave looks distinct for a moment, but it's all just water.
Perfect analogy. And this is where someone like Meister Eckhart comes in so powerfully. When he talked about the birth of God in the soul, he wasn't talking about something external coming in. He meant realizing that divine ground, that unity within yourself, letting go of the separate wave identity to recognize the ocean.
So this God beyond God isn't necessarily a person up in the sky, but this fundamental reality, this unified substance.
Exactly. It's a non-dual understanding. Theologia Germanica, which carries Eckhart's influence, puts it like this. All things have their being more truly in God than in themselves, and all beings are one in substance in the perfect being.
Everything is fundamentally of God, even if it appears separate.
Right. The appearance is temporary, the substance is eternal and unified.
Okay, so here's a thought. If in that non-physical realm, described in conversations with God, thought instantly creates experience, no lapse. What does that mean for us here, where there is a lapse between thought and experience? Does it mean our thoughts are still creating, just slower?
That seems to be the implication. It highlights the incredible importance of our intention, our focus, our dominant thoughts and beliefs right now. Even with the time lag, we are constantly shaping our reality with our inner world.
So maybe the physical world is like a slightly delayed 3D print of our consciousness.
Huh, I like that. Yeah, the creative process is always happening, driven by what we accept internally. We're laying down the energetic blueprint constantly, even if the print takes time to manifest. It makes paying attention to our thoughts incredibly important.
Okay, so if our core issue is this illusion of separation, fueled by the ego, and our true nature is unified, how do we bridge that gap? How do we move from illusion to reality?
Well, that's the journey, isn't it? And almost all these traditions talk about a path of, let's call it, purification or transformation. It's about actively dismantling those illusions.
And a huge part of that seems to be detachment, letting go.
A massive part. It's often presented as a radical need to detach from earthly attachments, desires, outcomes. Basically, everything the ego clings to for its sense of self and security.
And this isn't just like tidying up your life. It sounds pretty intense sometimes.
It can be very intense. Look at the Dhammapada. It says, let go in front, let go behind, let go in between. That's total relinquishment. Past, future, even the present attachments.
Why so drastic?
Because, it warns, if you're attached to passions, you fall back into the stream like a spider on a self-spun web. The attachments themselves create the trap. You weave your own prison with your desires. Letting go is the only way out.
Wow. So the web isn't external, it's self-spun. That's powerful.
It is, and the Bhagavad Gita talks about this too, discussing renunciation tyaga and the importance of transcending the activities of the modes of material nature.
The modes. Those are like the energies influencing us. Goodness, passion, ignorance.
Exactly. Sattva, rajas, tamas. They color everything we do, think, and feel in the material world. They drive our attachments and keep us bound in cycles of action and reaction. Renunciation in this context means consciously choosing to act from a place beyond the pull of these modes, from a place of deeper awareness.
So it's not just giving up stuff, it's giving up being controlled by those reactive energies.
Precisely. It's reclaiming your inner freedom from those impulses.
We see a really vivid picture of this kind of radical letting go in Hesi's Siddhartha, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Siddhartha's journey is almost archetypal. He leaves everything home, family, status, comfort, even his own will for a time when he joins the samanas.
He becomes an ascetic, subjecting himself to extreme hardship.
Yes, believing that this total stripping away, this emptying out, was essential for finding what he was seeking. It wasn't about punishing himself. It was about creating space.
Emptying the cup, so to speak.
Exactly. Emptying the cup of the old self, the conditioned self, the attached self, to make room for, well, for the divine, for truth, for whatever might emerge from that emptiness. Eckhart would say, preparing the ground of the soul.
Okay, so detachment is key, but this path often involves, well, suffering, doesn't it? Which most of us try very hard to avoid.
We really do. But paradoxically, many of these teachings reframe suffering. It's not seen as just pointless pain, but as a potentially powerful tool for growth, a catalyst.
A catalyst? How so?
Well, the road less traveled puts it quite pragmatically. When we avoid the legitimate suffering that results from dealing with problems, we also avoid the growth that problems demand from us.
So dodging the pain means dodging the lesson,
Right.
dodging the growth.
Often, yes, and think about Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. Even in the horror of a concentration camp, he found that suffering could reveal purpose, that we are to answer the questions that life asks of us, by how we respond, by taking responsibility for our inner state, even when outer circumstances are terrible.
Suffering forces us to dig deep, to find meaning where we thought there was none.
It can, yes. And this leads us to a really specific kind of transformative suffering described by St. John of the Cross, the dark night of the soul.
That sounds ominous.
It's described as incredibly difficult, a period of spiritual desolation, feeling abandoned. But St. John says it's not abandonment at all. It's actually an inflowing of God into the soul.
An inflowing. That sounds good, but why is it dark and painful?
Because that divine light, that inflowing, purges the soul of its ignorances and imperfections. It burns away everything that isn't aligned with the divine. He says the soul suffers such pain in its weakness that it nearly swoons away. But it's happening to strengthen it and subdue it.
Like a spiritual trial by fire, to purify it for union with God.
Exactly. It's a painful but necessary cleansing. It strips away the ego's illusions, the false comforts, the spiritual pride, everything that stands in the way. It's that emptying process again, but perhaps even more intense. It's the wholesome suffering Augustine mentioned in his Confessions, the kind that removes the swollen-headed conceit.
And the outcome. What happens after the dark night?
Clarity, dedication. St. John says the soul finds within itself a genuine determination to do not, which it understands to be an offense to God. The purification leads to a profound alignment and a deeper capacity for love and union.
Okay, so detachment and even embracing suffering are parts of the path. What else? What are the active practices?
A huge one, maybe the most central practice, is cultivating presence, becoming aware of the present moment.
Just being here now.
Pretty much. It sounds simple, but it's profound. It means learning to disidentify from the constant stream of thoughts, the mental chatter, the emotional reactions that usually pull us into the past or future.
Becoming the observer of the mind, rather than being swept away by it.
Exactly. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Doubt talks about this a lot. He encourages us to disidentify and become the watcher of the pain body.
The pain body, what's that?
He describes it as this accumulation of past emotional pain, like an energy field within us that can take us over. It's trapped life energy. By watching it with presence, without reacting, we start to dissolve its power.
So awareness itself is the key.
Yes. The core practice is to withdraw attention from past and future whenever they are not needed, to consciously step out of the time dimension. And the amazing insight is, the moment you realize you are not present, you are present. That flicker of awareness is presence returning.
That's a relief. You don't have to be perfect, just aware when you're not.
Right. And the untethered soul looks at it similarly, framing things like anxiety, insecurity, jealousy, what it calls inner sensitivity, as signals. Like physical pain tells you something's wrong with the body, this inner discomfort tells you something's off energetically.
So instead of judging those feelings, we should just watch them. Watch the mental voice that resists.
Exactly. Observe the patterns, the triggers, the resistance, without getting caught up. This watching creates space, and in that space, the negativity loses its grip.
And this connects back to what we were saying earlier about thought creating reality.
Absolutely. If you can control your attention, if you can choose presence over distraction, you gain mastery over your inner world. Conversations with God calls thought control the highest form of prayer. Why? Because what I focus on as my intention becomes my reality.
So presence isn't just passive observation, it's reclaiming your creative power by choosing where you place your focus.
You got it. It's about consciously directing your energy, moment by moment.
Now, all this inner work, it sounds like a very solitary journey. But do these traditions talk about getting help? Guidance?
Oh, definitely. While the core transformation is internal, most traditions emphasize the value of guidance. This could be from teachers, scriptures, community, or specific practices like prayer or devotion.
So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel entirely on your own.
Not at all. The Bhagavad Gita, for instance, strongly advocates for bhakti yoga, the path of loving devotion. It says the Lord gives understanding to those who are constantly devoted, and it stresses learning from bona fide spiritual masters.
People who've walked the path and can show the way.
Right, those who embody the teachings. Autobiography of a Yogi is full of accounts of such masters, like Sri Yukteswar or Babaji, possessing extraordinary abilities that seem to bend the normal rules of reality.
Telepathy, manipulating karma.
Yeah.
Things that challenge our worldview.
Deeply. But these stories serve to illustrate the potential of human consciousness when fully realized, and the profound impact guidance from such beings can have.
What about guidance from texts or practices?
The Cloud of Unknowing, a cornerstone of Western mysticism, advises the contemplative to engage in reading, thinking, and praying, the classic disciplines. But it also points to something deeper.
What's that?
It talks about sudden conceits and blind feelings, moments of insight into our own flaws or God's goodness that are sooner learned of God than of man. There's an element of direct divine tuition that bypasses human intermediaries.
Like an inner knowing. Perhaps what Eckhart meant by the divine spark in the soul's ground.
Quite possibly. It suggests both external learning and internal receptivity are important. And for structured practice, think of the way of a pilgrim.
The Jesus prayer.
Yes, that relentless, heartfelt repetition. Breathing in, Lord Jesus Christ. Breathing out, have mercy on me. Concentrating the mind and the heart. It's a method to quiet the mental noise and cultivate that inner sanctuary of peace and divine connection through sheer devotional focus.
So whether it's a living teacher, ancient texts, focused prayer, or those sudden inner nudges, guidance helps keep you oriented, helps you navigate the tricky parts.
Exactly. Provides structure, inspiration, correction, and companionship on what can be a very demanding yet ultimately rewarding journey towards that experience of unity.
Okay, so we've talked about the illusion of separation, the ego, and the path of purification through detachment, presence, and guidance. Where does this path ultimately lead? What's the destination, so to speak?
The destination, if you can call it that, seems to be this direct experience of oneness, of connection with the divine. And key aspect of this, something really emphasized by mystics like Plotinus and Meister Eckhart, is that this ultimate reality is, well, fundamentally beyond description. It's ineffable.
Ineffable, meaning words just can't capture it.
Precisely. Any concept, any definition, any name we try to put on it inevitably falls short, limits it. Plotinus, talking about the one, basically said the only true thing you can say about it is that it transcends everything, even intellect itself. Saying anything else makes it something among things which it isn't.
It's not a thing, it's the source of all things, before things.
Exactly. It's the ground of being itself. This is very much like Eckhart's distinction between God, the creator, relatable, and the Godhead, the unknowable absolute abyss from which God emerges. This Godhead is beyond all attributes.
Which explains why mystics often use paradox or negative theology, talking about what God is not.
Right. Because any positive description risks limiting the limitless. Theologia Germanica speaks of that inward sight that perceives the one true good as being neither this nor that. It's a recognition that happens when all knowledge of the parts is swallowed up when the whole is known.
You can't grasp the ocean by analyzing the drops. You have to somehow perceive the whole ocean at once, beyond analysis.
That's a perfect way to think about it. Our intellectual tools are designed for the parts, for the drops. Experiencing the whole requires a different faculty, an intuitive merging, perhaps.
So this ineffable one, it's not just distant and unknowable, is it? These traditions also seem to say it's right here underlying everything.
Absolutely. That's the other side of the coin. Beneath all the diversity we see, there's a fundamental unity, a divine ground, a pervasive spirit. And crucially, this divine ground isn't separate from us. It is our own essential nature.
We are that. We're not just in it. We are it.
Yes. Deepak Chopra in the Seven Spiritual Laws calls this pure consciousness or pure potentiality. He says it's the field of all possibilities, our spiritual essence, and it's characterized by joy, silence, balance, bliss.
Sounds pretty good.
Doesn't it? And he states clearly, underlying the infinite diversity of life is the unity of one all-pervasive spirit. There is no separation between you and this field of energy. The field of pure potentiality is your own self.
My own self, not just like myself, but is myself. That dissolves the whole idea of separation we started with.
Completely. And Theologia Germanica echoes this profoundly, saying that nothing in its essence, these isness, its life, its knowing, is contrary to God. Even things we perceive as negative, like an evil spirit or a flawed person, their fundamental being is, liveth and the like, is altogether good and of God.
Because God is the being of all that are.
Yes, God is the being of all that are and the life of all that live. For all things have their being more truly in God than in themselves. It asserts that fundamentally all good things are of one substance and the one good.
This gives you a totally different perspective on, well, everything, even conflict, even things you dislike. If everything has its being in God.
It shifts things dramatically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Bhagavad Gita suggests finding that relationship with the Supreme Lord in everything. It's a powerful antidote to feeling isolated or alienated. We're not separate fragments. We're all interconnected expressions of this single divine reality.
Every note is part of the symphony.
Beautifully put.
So the end point of the journey, the result of all this purification, realization, is union, emerging with this divine ground.
That seems to be the experiential culmination, a profound, often described as blissful state of union, not just a concept, but a lived reality. It brings deep peace and freedom from the suffering caused by the illusion of separation.
It's like coming home.
Exactly. Teresa of Avila, in Interior Castle, describes the highest state, the seventh mansions, as the place within the soul where His Majesty alone dwells. She calls it a second heaven inside us. And she emphasizes that the soul isn't dark. It contains this interior light.
So the union happens within the soul.
Yes, it's an inner realization, an abiding presence. St. John of the Cross describes the soul, after the dark night, going forth to the sweet and delectable union of love of God. Remember, he said the dark night itself was an inflowing of God. That purification leads to this intimate union.
It's not just theoretical understanding, it's an experience of love, of connection.
Deeply experiential. William James, observing various religious experiences, noted that states like a religious rapture, moral enthusiasm, ontological wonder, cosmic emotion are all fundamentally unifying states of mind.
Unifying how?
He says in these states, the sand and grit of the selfhood incline to disappear and tenderness to rule. That separate defensive ego softens and dissolves, replaced by connection, compassion, unity.
You see this beautifully in Siddhartha's awakening scene.
Oh, perfectly. Under the tree, mumbling, He suddenly knows about Brahman, about the indestructibility of life, all that is divine, which he had forgotten. He wakes up a new man.
It wasn't learning something new, it was remembering something ancient, something forgotten.
Precisely. That experience of submergence and complete entering into Om, into the nameless, the perfected, that's it. That's the non-dual realization. That's Eckhart's birth of God in the soul becoming conscious reality. The divine isn't out there. It's recognized as the very essence of one's being.
So this union isn't something you achieve through effort in the usual sense. St. John talks about perfection of love without its doing anything or understanding.
Right. It seems less like building something and more like allowing something, unveiling something. It's a fundamental shift in perception, a recognition of what's already true, revealing our real inheritance. Wholeness, peace, connection to that God beyond God. #outro. So, wrapping things up. Wow, we really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? journeying through these incredibly deep spiritual teachings.
We really have. From understanding how our minds create this sense of separation, this egoic illusion.
To exploring the path of purification, letting go, being present, finding guidance, even seeing suffering in a new light.
And then culminating in this idea of oneness, this experience of a God beyond God. Something totally transcendent, yet somehow, paradoxically, right here within us, the very ground of our being.
It's a journey from feeling fragmented and lost to realizing a fundamental wholeness and connection.
And the crucial thing for everyone listening is that this isn't just, fascinating ancient history or philosophy.
Not at all. These insights are incredibly practical. Understanding how your mind works, how the ego operates, the power of presence. These are tools you can use every single day.
Tools to navigate challenges, to understand your reactions, to maybe dismantle some of those blocks we all have to feeling loved or connected.
Exactly. By doing that inner work, the detachment, the awareness, seeking guidance in whatever form works for you, you really can start to experience more of that peace, that joy, that freedom.
The stuff that the texts say is our natural inheritance. It's not something we earn, but something we uncover.
Beautifully said. It's remembering who you truly are beneath the layers of conditioning.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Something to chew on.
Okay, how about this? Conversations with God throws out this provocative idea that the evolution of a society is measured by how well it treats the least among its members. And it also claims that in highly evolved cultures, personal possessives do not exist.
Right, no mine.
So if we really take seriously this idea of a single soul, a fundamental oneness, what would our world actually look like if we lived from that place? And personally, for you listening, what possessions, maybe not just material things, but beliefs, identities, grievances, what are you ready to let go of?
What are you ready to release to step closer to that unified reality, to allow maybe that birth of God, as Eckhart put it, within your own awareness?
Definitely something to ponder.
Indeed. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We hope this gave you plenty to think about. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.